Good morning and welcome to Morning Buzz Season 2. I'm Adam Eisen, Membership Director at the One Club for Creativity, and I'm so excited to be back. We had hoped to relaunch a couple of weeks ago, but what can I say? I don't know about you, but the beginning of the year has hit me like a freight train. How can it be mid-March? I could really use some support in the chat right now, by the way. Anyway, I could say that while we were away, we've made some upgrades. If you've been here before, you'll notice that our website has gotten a little bit of a facelift. A big shout out to our web team who creates and maintains all of the One Club's websites and pages, all 3,462 of them. Oh, what's that? Oh, I hear that we just launched 3 more just since going live. But seriously, they are rock stars. And in addition, I'd like to shout out Takumi Seiji, the designer of Morning Buzz. Takumi actually started here as an intern last fall, and we locked him in our server closet so that he couldn't leave. But don't worry, we do allow him to join our seamless team order on the days that we work in the office. Really, though, thank you, Takumi. If you're new here, hi, I'm so glad that you're here. Morning Buzz is our recurring program spotlighting the incredible membership community here at the One Club. For episodes, we typically kick things off with one of our corporate members taking the stage with a tantalizing talk, panel, or presentation on any number of topics. And then I follow that up with an intriguing interview with one of our immensely talented professional members. Episodes are always live, so please throw your questions, your Go Girls, and your cascarone emojis in the chat because we do see them and we do respond to them and we appreciate it. We have a great episode for you today as our friends at Zambezi share insights on collaboration between creative and media teams for maximum impact. And then we'll meet Ruxandra Drilia as we dive into a super cool Girls Who Code project where users can create female video game characters that actually represent women. So stick around. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome from Zambezi, Chief Media Officer Grace Teng. Hi, Grace, how are you?
Good. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. And Director of Integrated Strategy, Natalie Gomez. Natalie, hi.
Hi, good morning from LA.
All the way from LA, so early. Thank you both for being here. I can't wait to hear what you have in store. So go ahead and take it away.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, One Club, and really excited to talk about integrated campaigns. We're trying to make things fun and light, and hopefully we can have some fun along the way. I'm assuming you see my screen. So I'm Natalie, Director of Integrated Strategy at Zambezi, which is a fully integrated, women-owned, independent agency in LA. We have offices also in Minneapolis. And I also have Grace here.
Yeah.
And yeah, we work really, go ahead, Grace.
Oh, no, sorry. I was just, my mood is definitely off. Yeah, so I just wanted to say hello. So I'm the partner and chief media officer, and I'm very excited to be here with Natalie. So the reason we're here today is because we want to talk more about how like brand strategy and media makes the creative better. Our process is called cross-comms. And I also want to highlight the fact that, yes, we are part of Zambezi, which is a full service ad agency. But what I also bring to the table and represent today is Scaled by Zambezi, which is a full service media shop. And we actually broke off, just so you know, because we love being a part of an integrated shop. The ideas are awesome. The creativity is great. But when it comes to media is just different. We have different processes. We have different tools, different research. So we just want to make sure that media gets what it needs. So we double down. So like some of like essentially the clients we have on a scale level, which is Health Aid Kombucha, Google Fiber, and then the most recent one we just had is LA Philharmonic.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot happening at scale. And from the creative side, we're really integrated with media, and we'll get into like exactly how we make the magic. And really, we have a really cool case study. So lots to talk about here, and Q&A at the end. So just a glimpse of what we'll be talking through.
Okay, cool. So then I would say like just to start, we wanted to talk about an integrated case study so you can see what we actually did. And then we'll go through the process of like how we work together. So starting off, this is Traeger Grills. I'm just going to do a quick background. We have a sizzle video for you to watch so you can better understand like what the context is. So Traeger Grills, if you haven't heard about it already, is what I call the Tesla of grills. It is a wood pellet grill, and it is the most technologically advanced grill. So for example, you can actually turn on the grill with your app. You can dial the temperature. I mean, there's all these crazy things you can do. So it is extremely technologically advanced. And so in terms of background, the case study you're going to see is basically starting in 2020. You got to remember there was this pandemic. People are at home. They at that point, they wanted grills. So Traeger wanted to capture that attention. They wanted to create buzz, and they were planning an IPO in 2021. So there was a lot riding on making sure people understood what Traeger is. So how do we do it? So we focused on some specific markets where growth was the biggest. We also created control and test markets. In terms of media, there's like digital, there's social, the influencers, there's TV spots, there's radio, and there's also creativity without a home. So one I want to call out in particular, and again, you'll see it in a second, is that we had a billboard in Salt Lake City with a real life animal farm. And over the course of 4 weeks, an animal went missing from the farm and showed up on the billboard. And we wanted to caveat that no animals were harmed, but why don't we actually just play the clip so you guys can see what we're talking about?
I'm on it.
Traeger Grills outperforms anything on the market. The challenge? Despite its cult status, Traeger was very loved by very few. We needed to grow awareness with grillers and fight our way into the initial consideration set. Our insight was to expand beyond the category conventions of man, meat, machine, and open our arms to all who seek more flavor in life. The strategy was to elevate Traeger into a communal destination, a place where living a life of flavor isn't just about what's on the plates, it's who's in the chairs. Inspired by those insights, our creative platform, Welcome to the Traegerhood, was born. We mobilized Traeger's biggest asset, a die-hard community of wood pellet grill enthusiasts, and created an open embrace for all, from grill masters to newcomers. We launched Welcome to the Traegerhood with a 360 integrated campaign anchored by an anthem spot.
With your masquerading and you always contemplating what to do in case happiness found.
Then we released targeted influencer videos, contextual outdoor, and sonic random.
So it sounds like the sound is cutting out, so I could just do a VO. So these are like some integrated media shots that we had. We were making sure we're like essentially a part of sports, because sports was a really important part of essentially reaching this audience who really loved entertainment.
Grace, should I keep playing it?
Yeah, go ahead and just keep playing it and let's see if it pushes up.
At NFL Draft, we also executed around food passions like Hell's Kitchen, Chopped, and Taste Made. To top things off, our grill board custom execution integrated live farm animals into a first-of-its-kind ambient experience, showcasing the unexpected fun that can be found in the Traegerhood. The results speak for themselves. Awareness skyrocketed by 35% and sales grew by 39%, and Traeger landed at the top of the all-important initial consideration set, surpassing even Weber. Welcome to the Traegerhood has become a rallying cry far beyond the campaign. It's part of the brand's DNA and will carry forward into the future. See you in the Traegerhood.
Okay. So I was actually just going to note, I know it cut out for a second, but the song that we had is Follow the Pied Piper. So if you recognize that song, it fits in with people like running and eventually getting to the Traeger. If you want to watch the spot, it's on YouTube. So you're welcome to check it out afterwards.
Yeah. And hold on, give me 1 sec, Grace, to pull up.
Sure.
That.
To pull it back up. Yeah. Yeah. So this section now that Natalie is going to be talking about for this first half is the process of how we work together. So I know you guys are in creative, and it's like essentially how do we help bring that to life, both from a brand strategy side and then also from a media strategy side, and how do we brainstorm and essentially work together to have the best product?
Yeah, so I think what's really unique about our cross comms process is that, we have, representation and activity from 3 parts of the spectrum, right? I like to think of it as like this trifecta of brand, comms, and media. So we have our brand strategist, we have our comms planner, or in my case at Zambezi, I'm doing both. I'm an integrated strategy director, and then working with media as well. So Grace and her team, and really like how I like to think about this is the brand really is responsible for the messaging. What are we saying? What is the positioning? What is going to make us differentiated? Like, there's a lot of thinking and work that goes into that. And then from the comm standpoint, there's work that goes into that too. Leaning into your audience. How are we showing up? How are we, when are we showing up? What is the cadence? What is the flighting? And then media, where are we showing up? And Grace will get into this also, like, what placements make sense? What partners are going to be the most effective for us? And really, like, when you have the best of all those three things, like you have a really strong campaign, like the Traeger example, I love because it's authentic to the brand, to the audience of meat lovers, right? And it's a smart, unexpected, disruptive out-of-home placement. Like, usually you don't see animals outside billboards like that. And that's a blend of comms too, because the fact that there was one animal popping up when then like the billboard changes, like that, like dynamic, like component of it is very comms related too. So yeah, with that, I think coming out of this conversation, we have some few little takeaways on how to make this construct really active, like whether you're creative, whether you're a strategist, or on the media side as well. So 3 takeaways to keep in mind when developing integrated campaigns. 1, serve as a diplomat. So we're definitely having fun with gifts today. So I like to think of myself as Leslie Knope. And I guess Grace, you're Ron Swanson in this case.
Cool.
So yeah, one team, one dream. I know that there's like always like, there's obstacles that can happen on the media side as well as the creative side. There's different timelines. Sometimes there's different clients. Sometimes there's different expectations, even maybe KPIs. And it's really a matter of trying to be a diplomat when you're doing integrated planning and trying to see how you can help each other. And maybe you don't have anything formal to share. Maybe there's no creative yet. But you can still share part of the process, where you are, what you're excited about, and also know like when it's time to maybe bring something up, right? Like if okay, this audience, we're seeing from like the audience research is resonating towards like music. Like that's something to bring up to the media team, or, hey, the creative team is really playing around in this territory. Like, the idea is not approved. I think it's a lot of times we get caught in processes and like formalities, but having an open space and being collaborative is so important. And even from the media side, right? Like, if you don't have a tactical plan, if there's not secured partners, like that's fine. Like, and I think like, you'd rather know about the media buy earlier than later so that you can have the most contextual messaging. Like that Traeger one's like contextual to the T. It's so custom. And ideally, like all creative is contextual, and whether it's a social ad, an NBA, contextual spot, you want to make it obviously relevant for the audience where they're watching it, and make it make sense for the brand as well. Our second one, lean into your audience. So especially now, like there's a lot of campaigns, where you're trying to lean into Gen Z, and I'm not Gen Z, and I don't try to pretend to be either. And at the end of the day, like, don't assume your audience, do the work. And this is really, really important for, all aspects of creative and media. And if you're not connecting with your audience, then it's a miss, right? And if that's part of the business challenge, right? So what we do is really focus a lot in the upfront of any planning effort, any campaign, who is the audience? And it's not enough to be like, oh, families, or oh, Gen Z. Like, it's not just focusing on the demographic. It's not just looking at people for, an age range or like a trope, or like families, 25 to 34, we want to like basically contextualize them as much as possible. And it's good for like the creative team too, because, you're basically like giving them a person to like connect with, and it's easier to do that than a demographic. And so what we do is a lot of research into MRI Simmons, which is our consumer profiling tool. I'm sure a lot of you already know about that, but like we look also into like attitudinal, behavioral statements. On the creative and brand side, we try to like cherry pick, some insights from what we're seeing. And also like, it's not just about maybe one segment. Sometimes we like to look at like multiple segments because, there's so much like intersections now with audiences. So it's really important to really ultimately do the work. And this is something that all counterparts agree on, really.
Okay, so then how do you collaborate and create with media? So the reason why we have this gift here is similar to Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart. Sometimes it may feel like we're completely different people who think differently, who operate differently, but yet it works. And so just like here, it could be a very beautiful, strange, but beautiful partnership. And so I would just note that like at this point, so Natalie talked about the brand strategy. She talked about the target audience. And then now we start building out the media strategy. So there's just strategy, as you can see at this very top level right now, where we're honing on just to make sure we know the vision of the campaign, like who we're targeting and how we're going to be doing it. And this is really when the fun brainstorming begins. So I would just note that this is actually really important for creative because this impacts like how the idea comes to life. To illustrate, like the ad on TikTok is different than an ad on streaming video, as you guys know, which is different from an out-of-home billboard. So as an example, literally yesterday, I was in a creative review with a creative director about a presentation that they're going to be having next week for one of our clients. And I reviewed the concepts and it's very infant and they need to build it out still, but there was 4 concepts. And what I could help do is bring it to life. This concept looks awesome in social carousels. This concept would be great for an out-of-home billboard. And the thing is, look, this is so early on, it's just concepting. So this media speak right now is a little ahead of itself. But that being said, when you're ready to sell it into the client, you can already tell the clients how this is going to market. And that just brings it to life. Because in the beginning, sometimes the clients are like, okay, I get the concept, but like, how would it live? So if you can already have that in situ, that's one step getting closer to whichever concept you have being sold in, because you can stack it with more media ideas, or you can build on certain concepts and just let that creativity continue to go. So it's just a really nice way of tying it all together. And I love the fact that we talked about being integrated. Like literally, I can call Natalie being like, hey, I just want to make sure I'm on point for strategy while I'm talking to the creative director, and we can just do that all at once. Another way we work together. Yeah, I know it's really.
Oh, no, I was just going to add on that, like, even when we look at like a rollout, like the whole construct of the campaign, like it's not just one idea, right? So it's also like, what does the media investment look like? Where do we need to focus? Okay. What's going to be good for like, maybe we want to lean in a temple moment, and maybe there needs to be like different phases. Maybe there's a gap for the creative, and we need to go back with the team and like solve it,
Yeah, like, or even like when our events, right? Like you're saying, what are the temple events that we want to hold on to? I mean, and also what's really cool about working with Natalie is that this comms plan that she's talking about, it's this beautiful one sheet that the clients get. And most clients are like, we just want to see messaging, timing, media types, and it's all together on one slide. And it's just awesome. Like, it's just a roadmap to like what we're doing and how we're doing it. And that's something that's really great that Natalie has been bringing to the table, which is awesome. Like another way that we actually work together is essentially when we bring in best practices from a media perspective. So for example, now we know that Facebook, Instagram, story, reels, and TikTok verticals are really good with like 9 to 15 seconds of time. So before, we talked about the 6-second video, there's a 15-second video, and now it's 9 to 15. So I think from a creative perspective, it's like, okay, well, this video is slightly longer than 6 seconds. It's not just an image and a title card. Is there something else you can do that's funny? Is there almost like a little gift moment, right? Like where you can like make that happen. So working with the media team and understanding, once you have your concepts, understanding what the parameters is always like a really great thing. And now what you can build the creative in mind.
Love that.
Yeah, so just an example, when we're talking about like the summary of the key points here, the first one is like serve as a diplomat, as Natalie was talking. And when she was talking, the other thing I was thinking about, Natalie, was like, it's about building relationships, right? It's like once you actually have that trust established. So I think it's really important just to spend time to chit chat, to like get to know one another, because it makes the work better. And honestly, it makes it more fun. So I think, being able to build it is a good thing.
100%. Yeah.
And then the second part is to like love your audience. Or like know your audience, and essentially like another thing that I think that the strategy team does that really well for our creative team is when they do the creative briefings, like you guys always like make it like the atmosphere of the client, right? So like if it's like a beachy area, then it's like pina coladas are brought in or whatever it is. And it's like ideas of who the audience would be. And then there's images of who, so it's really bringing to life like all the fun of like the brand itself and like who you're trying to reach. And then the last part of that is the collaborate and create with media. So it's like, one team, one dream.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of mostly like you were saying, like the relationships, like the interpersonal component of it. And then just like meeting in the middle, right? Like just being allies for each other in the planning process, whether it's the beginning or even executional, when things are in motion and like you need to maybe swap things out, or like messaging wise, maybe things need to be optimized differently. And just having that continuous forum of trying to just make the work better, which is like going to serve both parties, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think that's when the brainstorming is fun, right? Because that's where we are able to like come together and be like, hey, what do you think about this idea? What do you think about that idea? And especially at that stage, we're just coming up with ideas. So it's like we can all work together in that, and we all bring a slightly different point of view and element into it. So I think it just makes it pretty interesting and fun. And I think what I also like about what we do is I think we have a lot of respect for one another and our disciplines. So, I think, instead of being like, that's okay. Like,
like, like being able to call out that that's not the best idea, but maybe you build on it, right? Or
exactly. That's right.
Or maybe that's not in the media buy, and it's like, okay, well, what is in the media buy? Like, this is our sandbox, to play in. Or like, oh, well, client wouldn't ever want to do that. Like, how can we make it more, brand, like aligned to the brand? There's so many different parameters in the brainstorming process, but it is fun because, creative, it's not just about the video, right? It's not, of course, you're going to need some aspect of storytelling, but with media, like there's so many different ways of showing up to be memorable, which is why like I love integrated planning, because, it's like, okay, like the Traeger example, or, just showing up in a really unique way, because everyone's going to see a like commercial, right? Like, and it's, there's always going to be, TV spots, but, how can you do a TikTok campaign differently? How can you do like, out of home differently? There's different kinds of out of home even, when I first started comms planning, like just to know, the sheer amount of different formats, like as a, creative thinker, you should also know what formats you have at your disposal. And, think about, okay, how can I do this differently? And what makes sense for the audience? Because it's like, a print ad is very different than a TikTok hashtag challenge. Right. And then we like the media buys, because there's always like new media buys too. So the Grace like rely on you a lot for like the streaming wars updates, like all of that, because it's hard to keep up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, literally Netflix and Disney Plus just started to allow ads this year, and HBO Max was going to become Discovery. And now that's not the case. And now it's just Max. And, when you're looking to see who to reach and how, and like, for example, even Tubi now is in market, right? And that's like free streaming. And how does that come into play? And Tubi actually got quite some support in terms of Fox, because they were on the Super Bowl twice. For those of you who saw the ad where you're like, oh no, my who changed it? Turned out it wasn't. It was an ad. That very much like caught people's attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would also just know, like, the good thing also with being media integrated is that we get the results. So that part I think is pretty cool. A lot of times, like, you'll just be like, from a creative perspective, you create it and it goes out to the ether and you're just like, okay, like that was awesome. But like, what happened? And I think having media in-house, it just allows you to actually see both in terms of messaging, where you can test on the lower level, like on social and like programmatic, like you can do some really quick messaging and just getting a feel of like what images work, like what specific, not just like color or word changes, but like, is it the actual product sales or is it the brand attributes? Like which one has the most response, all the way to brand awareness for the larger ads. So you're able to see both from a brand awareness side all the way to direct response, depending on the campaign, on how things perform.
Yeah, I always try to get my hands on that data, on the results, and even like from a creative standpoint, like how can we make it better for the next, campaign? Are there creative insights to lean into? Like, what's the video completion rate? Like, all of that is so integral to making the work better.
Yeah. And it's also just nice being able to, like when you have a day of launch, for example, like some sort of social or homepage takeover, et cetera, it's like sending the link to everybody or the screenshots being like, hey, these are all the places that the creative ran. I think people are always really proud of the work that they do. Yeah. I would note another thing that we also do quite a bit for our clients is custom sponsorships, especially in the digital space. For example, for one of our clients, it's in the human capital management space. We love doing like these TED Talks. And not only is it just TED Talks, but we have somebody from the company come and speak with Adam Grant on TED.com about thought leadership, which I think is just awesome. So for those type of partnerships, we do have the creative team involved. Yes, the media team might first get the idea from the vendor, but then ultimately it's like we literally have a kickoff call with the creative team, letting them know that this is happening so they can add their flavor, being like, hey, maybe this is the content we should be talking about. Maybe like we add this, maybe we look at it this way. So just being able to add that creative element together when we're coming up with custom partnerships is also just like a really fun thing to do.
Yeah. Should I take off the GIFs off the screen?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Okay.
We had a really good time choosing those gifts. If you guys,
I'm in a loop.
So I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, basically that's just us in a very quick nutshell, just talking about, our process, some of our clients, how do we think, we know some of you guys may have some questions and we're happy to answer.
Yeah. So I'll take this down. How do I answer? Okay. Thank you. Whoever did that.
It's magic, the magic of streaming. All right. Yeah, we do definitely have some questions. Thank you so much. That was really great. I love the perspective that you bring to this. And I want to start with the beef. What have been some of the challenges of being integrated? Like, can you name a time or two where there's been some like butting of heads, and how did you get through it?
I mean, I could start and then Natalie.
I'm looking at Grace.
You can see silence. You're bringing out like truth. I would just say for the most part, usually it's just quick timelines because the media and the strategy, literally the timelines are exactly the same. And sometimes it's like, they would say, well, we need the media specs. So we know what we're building. So we know what to build to, to help figure out like what exactly we're building. And we're like, we're just not there yet. Like, I would love to tell you that, but we don't know yet. So what we did do that I think is really helpful is, look, there's some things that we will always do. There's just some best practices. And we just make that like very clear from the very beginning, being like, this is your base. No matter what, start here and we will update you. We have weekly statuses internal, and then we have the client statuses the next day. And that's just a good way for us to touch base and to make sure we're all aligned. I also think, honestly, having a very strong account team, like Zambezi is one of the strongest account team I've ever worked with, period, which is just awesome. So the account team really keeps us accountable. I mean, talk about being a diplomat. They're another diplomat where they're trying to make sure to translate back and forth in a very peacefully as to like what's happening. And I feel like that's been really working for us.
Yeah, I think living that. And then also I see on the creative side, right? Like there's nothing more frustrating than knowing about a media buy when it's like weeks away and you're like, we could have produced an amazing spot for this, or, what it could, like the opportunities could have been like better, but it's a learning, right? And then like you try to like collaborate with your media person and you're like, okay, how can we get ahead of this next time? And it's time crunch, right?
Yeah.
Can you speak more to that media buy process? When is it happening? How are you collaborating together to create a strategy for media buy in a longer term perspective? Of course, we're talking here kind of project to project, but as you talked about, the landscape is changing. How do you kind of prepare a client and come up with a plan for future growth and placement?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. So I would just say in terms of processes, what we discussed today is the same for a shorter project as it is for a long-term project. Like it's still the brand strategy, starting off with the brand. It is still the target audience that is key. And then we build the media strategy afterwards. So first, I think to stay abreast of like all the things that are happening, one of the biggest things is that the media team is like, we meet with vendors like every week on a Tuesday. We're currently in the office on Tuesdays. And so we do a lunch and learn, and that's been awesome. So we are constantly, just keeping up to date in person about what's happening. And then on top of that, like, we're just on top of the news, right? Like, we're really close to our vendors. Like, we're making sure we're reading up to things. And then quite frankly, sometimes vendors reach out to us, right? So like, for example, Uber, we were actually first to market for a few of the ideas just because we heard about it. Like we were just like, all right, let's give it a try. What I really like is that we're really big about trying new things. So I think that's a very part of our ethos. Yeah. Then to actually go into, I would say, the media planning process of it. And when we start brainstorming, I would say it depends on the timeline, of course, but generally speaking, I mean, you want to start at least ideally 3 to 6 months out before the campaign launches. Because at that point, I mean, if you're going to be live for a full year and you do custom things, you just want to make sure you're thinking about it in advance. And that's usually when the creative is happening as well. So that's why, like, I would say a lot of the timelines are very close.
Sure. We have another, what are your tips for managing the balance between the needs of the client and the desires of the creative team?
Ooh, that's a good one.
So
I think at the bottom line, it's like, the client is, the boss, right? But you have to also challenge them too, right? And it depends on what the creative like desires and expectations are too, and trying to find like a middle ground. Sometimes, the business needs one thing, and creatively, like, you want to do something else, but maybe there's a middle ground. During COVID, there was a lot of like relief programs, for example. Is there a way to do storytelling for something that is so transactional as that? And there are ways. And I think, like, at the end of the day, it's like the creatives, like, also need to like understand how to have that conversation. Like, okay, are we trying to drive awareness? Are we like, is it about revenue? Is it about what are the issues? What are the challenges? And then how can we creatively solve those challenges? And then client will be like, okay, maybe they're more apt to wanting to listen to whatever ideas you have to bring to the table. I think like just living in like having a proactive dialogue is really great, even with media and also with the client too, has been my experience.
Yeah, I guess I would just add to that too, is like, if the strategy is really strong, I think you have more leniency to where the creative is going, because you can be like, well, the strategy is this. So this is a little out there, a little different, but you've asked for this and we're showing you this, right? So I think if you can have a reason for backing up versus like,
yeah, here's an idea.
Oh, I love it. Like
have
what
to
you
make
do.
It make sense.
Yeah, but like what's like a CMO is pretty rational at the end of the day, and they're very, generally speaking, fairly logical. So how do you get to the logic? And then have some fun with the art.
Oh yeah. Like how many charts do I have showing that emotion actually drives transactions? And the chart of it is a completely rational way of doing that.
Exactly.
Making it make sense and backing it into the bottom line ultimately.
Right. Yeah.
What has been one of the more innovative, like new media, like placements that you had to encourage a client to try out? That was maybe a bit of a trailblazing move. And how did you do it?
Yeah, and I guess like I was actually just thinking about Uber just because it's new.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And they're still figuring out the technology on that, but that didn't necessarily need a lot of encouragement by the client, because when we brought it up, they thought it was very cool. Yeah. I guess the encouragement at that time was just that Uber's targeting it was very new and the reach was limited. And so it wasn't so much the client, it was more like the capabilities at that time. And then the total dollar amounts that we were allocating towards it. But I mean, I think that was something that was new that we were like, that didn't get past the first time, but did get past the second time around. But that's more because of the technologies itself. Sure. I'm trying to think if there's like something media wise that we couldn't sell in. I mean, I feel like our client, is there something you're thinking of now?
No, I was going to say, like, I feel like it usually comes down to costs, like, and looking at like the holistic campaign and like, what are your priorities, right? It's like, oh, we would love to do that, integration or like partnership, but like fact is that we need to focus on, conversions or, harder working digital. So I feel like that's more of a challenge than like trying to like, most clients want to know about emerging innovative placements.
Yeah, I agree.
And what would you say? Can you give maybe any examples of any pitfalls where there was like a lack of collaboration between media and creative, and what you would go back and do differently, either internally
Yeah.
or if it was your account, how would you have handled it differently?
Yeah. Gosh, you know,
I'll let you order that. That's a hard one too.
yeah, I mean, these are great questions though, because this is, you know, it definitely happens. To be honest, we work pretty, I mean, we really do work pretty well, I feel like, at Zambezi. So I guess I'll have to use like a time where I think when the media and the creative are not in the same place. Like I've worked on accounts like when I was on Goldman Sachs, where I felt like we did overlap, which was nice. But then there's some where accounts where we just didn't. So I feel like that was really challenging, just because we didn't know what the creative was, or the creative would just come up with some idea and then the clients loved it. And then we then had to like back in media, and then it's like up for, let's just say they'd be like, okay, we're gonna be live for March Madness. And we're like, that's in a week. Like, sponsorships are done like a year in advance, and it's expensive. And like, where did this idea come from? And I think when you're not talking like that, it gets actually very, very frustrating. And I would say like, there's some accounts I worked on in the past where I spent more time just letting everybody know what was going on than like brainstorming or doing the work itself. So like, let's just say it was like, yeah, talking, like trying to get to like, who am I supposed to talk to on the creative side? And who am I supposed to talk to on the digital production side, you know, and just going over the same things over and over, which was very important at a large, like huge, you know, holding company, because you have to make sure people sign off. But I would just know, I think a lot of it was just communication, to be honest. I think it was communication and actually understanding like how one another works. And then because if you don't have those two things, like you can't brainstorm, right? Or the brainstorm sessions are fine, but they're a little weak, to be honest, because the relationships aren't established. So I feel like, I mean, those would be the main issues.
Anything out there now? Agreed. Support.
Agree. 100.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, sorry, to actually answer your question about like, what can you do about that? I think number one, rope an account if you can, like, you know, and again, we have a very strong account team at Zambezi. So it's been a lot easier, to be honest. Like sometimes some account, depending on people's background, some people know media a lot more, some people know media a lot less. And so like I think maybe number one is like to have leadership to really push being open to
and leadership also has to know the right questions, right, Grace? Like you have to like be experienced to know like why you're reaching out too.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's like leadership, make sure like we're all in line, and then talk to your account team, like know when is the right time to bring in the creative, and or actually ideally establish relationships with the creative somehow or another, go say hi, find out who it is. And then ultimately, I think then that will help set the beginning foundations of being able to brainstorm.
Yeah, you have to know like who are the right people. And who are the decision makers, and what is the timeline, like you, and some of those things like maybe you don't know, and you just have, it's like trying to find, like put a puzzle together, and like you can't, like you shouldn't pull in creatives and spin wheels if like you don't know where you are in the process. And you know, obviously there's so much work to be done, so trying to just get answers is step one for sure.
Yeah, and also egos need to be in check. That's the other thing. I think whenever anybody starts to feel like your blood pressure is rising, take a breath.
Yes.
Lower that, and then think about what's best for the product. If you can be like, let's put this aside, what's best for the client, what's best for the work, and have that be your North Star, then I think that also helps quite a bit.
Yeah. Serve the brand first.
Yeah. Perfect. I think that's a fabulous button to end things on. This was awesome. Thank you both so much, Natalie, Grace. Thank you. I know it's very early there in LA, so I appreciate you being on with us. Thank you so much, and all the Zambezi team for all your support. And I can't wait to see you guys again soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. I hope it helps.
Have a great one.
Okay. All right.
Have a great day.
Bye.
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 All right, next, I'm excited to introduce to you our next guest and member, Ruxandra Drilia. Originally from Romania and now based in New York, Ruxandra is an award-winning senior creative at Mojo Supermarket with accolades including Young European Creative of 2016, multiple ADC awards. She was selected as one of 15 high potential senior creative women at Cannes Lions See It, Be It program, and was ranked as 7th best creative in the world and best copywriter in Europe at the One Show last year. She's judged DNA D New Blood, Cannes Lions See It, Be It, Golden Drum Europe, and Adweek Experiential. When not creating exceptional creative work, Ruxandra is a gamer and one of the top 5 Twitch streamers in Romania, playing LGBTQIA+ inclusive storylines in The Sims. She also runs a show called Safe Space with a co-host and psychologist, and she has fun doing it all. Recently, Ruxandra has brought to life the Girls Who Code Girls project, the first coding experience that lets girls code characters who look just like them. Let's take a look.
We're almost there.
Are we? Almost half of gamers are girls, but 77% of game developers are men. That's why female characters in games look like this. Mostly white, cis, one-dimensional women with the same unrealistic body type and outfits that don't help them in battle. So if gaming companies can't make this change, who can? Girls Who Code. Introducing Girls Who Code Girls, the first coding experience that lets girls code gaming characters that look just like them. From skin range to body type, skin specificities, hairstyles, outfits, and even an identity, allowing girls to create 624 billion unique characters, all while learning 4 different coding languages. And the best part? Any of these characters could be licensed by gaming companies and integrated into actual games. We dropped the experience and everyone wanted in.
Just coded a hijabi character.
I think younger me would have loved to see a character with a similar body type.
They even have skin details. Shout out to all my people with dark under eye circles.
They spent an average of over 6 minutes on the site, coding thousands and thousands of realistic female characters, spreading the story all over the internet, allowing us to spread our message everywhere.
Learning to code puts girls in control.
We offered up the characters to all the major gaming companies, but before they could license a single character, girls started modding them into their favorite games. Just like that, we went from thousands of female characters designed by men to thousands of them designed by girls. All playable, all licensable. Gosh, is there anything girls can't fix?
That's awesome. Hey, Rux, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, the work is so much fun and makes such an awesome statement. I'd love to hear more about the beginning phases of how you came up with it and how you started to develop the project.
For sure. First of all, thank you for saying that. So Girls Who Code's newest strategy was Codify Life. And after the success of Doja Code, the first codable music video, we were seeking other major areas of interest for girls to help make coding more fun and remove it from the whole code is hard, it's just math and science, and for boys narrative, to get more women into coding. We needed also to share the fact that coding is very creative, and gaming was just an obvious choice as almost 50% of all players are women. But what we discovered is that 77% of game developers are men, and they're creating these hypersexualized characters and leaving girls and non-binary individuals feeling very misrepresented. And we had 2 goals with this campaign. One, of course, to create basically a proper intro into coding, and the experience featured 4 coding languages. And it also showed girls the creative opportunities that exist within the coding world, but at the same time, it kind of calls out the misogyny in the gaming industry and provides gaming companies with an actual solution, the data drop mentioned towards the end of the case study, because all the data gathered from the experience was shipped with a pretty ribbon to major companies because they can make this change, and together we can change the future of gaming.
That's amazing. And tell me more about making the work. How involved were you with its creation, and what was your favorite part?
So as you mentioned, I am indeed a gamer and a Twitch streamer. So I was highly interested in working with Girls Who Code. And in order to understand the biggest disadvantages and the biggest needs of the gaming community, we actually tapped into Black Girl Gamers, which is a community, an organization for women of color who play games. And they helped us get the perfect traits, the most important traits that they're lacking in the gaming industry right now. And it was, the top ones were accurate skin tones, inclusive hairstyles, and skin specificities. And in the end, they amounted to around 264 billion possible combinations. So we got the help from them to create this experience and make it as accurate as possible. So that was kind of the beginning of the process. And yes, we were involved, me and my partner, Connie Tre, we were involved from the beginning till the end. And we were maybe 80% an all-girls team. Yeah.
That's awesome. So cool. And we spoke about this a little bit earlier, and you mentioned some of your favorite parts, and I'd love for you to tell everybody
Yes.
what you enjoyed the most.
So I wasn't expecting to be surprised about the reactions, because I was expecting to see, of course, a lot of gamer girls, a lot of Twitch streamers, gaming influencers, coding influencers talking about it. But I was surprised that it ended up in another area with a lot of parents that were sharing about this experience. Even on LinkedIn, parents were even sharing kids with printed out copies of the character that they created in the experience. And we weren't expecting parents of Gen Alpha and Gen Z to get so involved in this. And we really appreciated them sharing everything.
That's so cool. That's so sweet. They're little printed out pictures. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Aside from that, has there been any like reactions in particular that really tugged at your heartstrings or made you realize that this work was really important?
There are some statistics that really impressed me. The average time spent on the website, because it was over 6 minutes. And in contrast with our doom scrolling world, that is a lot, because the average time spent per TikTok is like 3.3 seconds. Like if it's not interesting for you, you scroll away. If it doesn't have a hook, goodbye. And it also has a personal connection to me, this campaign, as a gamer. I was following a Twitch streamer who created an entire stream just for this experience. And I know that in Twitch, people can be sometimes mean, or the comments could be trolling. But I was surprised to see that everybody had very supportive comments for the streamer, and they really liked the initiative. And together they built this entire character as a group.
That's really cool. I love that. You mentioned, so you talk about you're a gamer. I'm curious just to like move the conversation a little bit, learn about you more. What types of games are you most drawn to as a gamer and streamer on Twitch?
Maybe it's obvious that games where I can customize my character and I don't have to pick from skins of like 3 basic the same blonde women. And I like a lot of indie games and multiplayer games that I can play, and where my streaming chat can participate into, and together we can also build something. Yeah.
Awesome. And in addition to working on some more great ideas for Girls Who Code, I'm sure that'll come along in the future. What other types of work are you interested in taking on in the future?
Good question. So the agency Mojo Supermarket does work with multiple nonprofits, but there's one specific cause that I really care about. And now in this climate, especially with the legislation happening now in the US, I would love to do some LGBTQIA plus work, and hopefully soon we'll be able to work on that. We know that Pride months are approaching, and sometimes brands just do something on Pride month and it's not enough. So that's a cause that I really care about. That's what I would love to do.
I hope to see something from you soon in that regard.
I'll send it to you when it's done.
Okay, perfect. We'll have you back on to share with everybody. So you moved to New York somewhat recently, about a year ago, is that right?
Yeah, almost exactly. 2 days from now, it's exactly a year. Yeah.
How's that going?
It's going well. I'm learning to love the city still. It's not as I expected it when I was 14 years old and I was resharing New York pics on Tumblr. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, it's definitely changed. It's definitely changed in the last couple of years.
Yes, but I like all the possibilities of the city. I lived in Bucharest, in my hometown in Constanza, in Milan, and in Paris. And I still think that New York has the best scene for absolutely everything, whatever your interest might be. And it helps that it's in English.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. Well, Rooks, thank you so much for being here. It's been awesome to get to see this work and learn more about it, meet you. You're an incredible creative. I know that more fabulous work is on its way. So can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Have a great day.
Bye.
All right. Well, we're about at time. So everyone, thank you for tuning in. I'm on my way to Puerto Rico for one show judging next week. I have my shirt on. We'll be back on April 6th with Harsh Kapadia of MRM as he presents how cultural MacGyverism unlocks diversity's full power. And we'll meet member Talia Cotton, who's a young gun winner and a girl who codes seriously cool projects. If you don't know her, you'll definitely want to tune in and check out some of that work. So I will look forward to seeing you then.